There's a huge barrier between men helping other men because we are afraid to seem weak. We are afraid to share our truths, and we are afraid for people to use those truths to hurt us. You're not broken. You're probably just doing a couple of things that are wrong, and there are overwhelming forces to make you feel that way. And you can seek the truth if you want to. There's no better investment than investing in yourself. I really, truly do believe in that. This program has been worth every single penny. If I had to pay it again to get the results that I had, I would do it.
What's going on, Reboot team? It's your Reboot Hero Chris here, and I am with somebody very, very special who is coming to us from the official Reboot Implementation Program, and I'm really, really excited to get to know him a little bit, introduce him to you guys, and yeah, hear a little bit about his story and his experience in the program so far. So, Wenson, appreciate you hopping on the call today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's always a fun time chatting with you. Yeah, I can maybe speak a little bit about myself. I have been a part of the free group for a little bit, and then I joined the paid implementation program. And maybe there's a bit of a backstory that I want to give there. So there's this whole myth that says when you turn 25, your prefrontal cortex develops, and a lot of habits get baked. So I think for myself, for my 25th birthday, I was like, I really just want to completely get rid of this behavior. I've been trying by myself using free resources for the last like 4 or 5 years with a varying success, long stretches and certain times I'd fall back, but I could never stay consistent. And I think after I joined this program, which was October of 2024, I want to say, I think a lot of things just clicked. I think there were a lot of tools that I didn't realize would have helped me had I known them a little bit earlier, and a little bit of structure that I really needed to get past that final hump. Before I get into all the details about like what I've been doing, I think like I just want to say I've been feeling absolutely on fire in terms of a lot of things I've wanted to do in my life. So, for example, I've always had ambitions at work. I've always had ambitions in creative spaces. I've always had ambitions in romantic relationships. And I think like I was never able to really take the bull by the horns, if that makes sense. I was always just a little bit apprehensive, and I was always like preparing, right? I was always getting ready. And I think what was missing was, number one, I didn't have any structure, I didn't have any clarity, but also I didn't have the energy that I needed to pursue some of these things in my life, because a lot of it was being taken away from these slips and these relapses. And I think now that I have momentum in a lot of these places in my life, whether it's like romantic endeavors or making music, or even at work, I've been taking a bit more risk, and it's really been showing. I have such a better time staying clean because I know that if I have any kind of bad behavior, it takes away from me chasing those goals which are authentic to me. And I think it's just like testament to this carrot and stick problem, right? You can beat a donkey as much as you want, but it's only going to move incrementally. But if you start like leading the donkey with his favorite treat, maybe a carrot on a really long stick, and you guide in the right direction, it'll start sprinting. And for the longest time in my life, I was always just beating myself up, right? After slips, after relapses, when I didn't hit my goals, and this negative perpetual cycle in my mind. But I think I was able to find a lot of clarity in support with other men, but also just seeing how incredibly successful some people can be when they get rid of this in their lives. And I feel like I've only started flying. I haven't even reached terminal velocity yet, but I'm very, very excited to see where things are going to go in a year or 2 years' time.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you for sharing that. And I want to hear, the ins and outs of that journey thus far and just things you've learned along the way. And yeah, again, thank you for your passion. It's palpable, man. And I'm curious, like what was that kind of definitive carrot moment? So in other words, what was the moment like where you're in the free group, right? And there was that decision, the time to make a choice where we're like, you know what? It's time to do this thing for real. Like what was the moment like right before you joined the group?
It's a good question. I think as someone who's a bit of an ego, I had a slight apprehension to getting help from other people professionally. I think I always have this idea in my head, which is I'm going to dig deep down and I'm going to figure this out myself. And you could do that and you get feedback from like bumping into walls and stuff, but you're very bruised and you're not very efficient. And I think I just kept bumping into walls. I think I swallowed my ego back in 2023, and I was just feeling very overwhelmed in life. So I seek professional help for therapy. This is before this group. And I think finding a good therapist is very important, but also putting in the work is very important. I remember there were exercises my therapist told me to do, and I wasn't like super believer. I was like, these sound a little like iffy, but I did them and they really helped. And I think that was the first moment in my life where I found that coaching was actually very valuable. So that made a tremendous amount of progress in my mental health. And then in my musical career, I started paying for like professional teachers. I had some background before, but I thought I had some gaps. And through that coaching as well, I was able to just get exponentially better, both with my singing, both with my piano playing. And I was like, okay, there are areas in my life that I have been able to pay for and have gotten tremendous amounts of help for. But there's just one thing that I'm still struggling with over and over and over again. And that's, the whole relapses and the slips, which are still taking away, I guess I want to say, energy from the rest of my life. And there's only one program that I've been following for the last 5 years. So I was like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. I am not going to have more time to deal with this. Coaching is clearly very valuable, especially from the right people. You definitely don't want to get coached by the wrong people with the wrong values. I'm going to give this a shot. If I'm in the hole for whatever the price is, and I realize that I gave it all that I had, then at least I know, right? At least I know that I tried. And I just did it. I went full in. I think I had a large lump sum of cash that had came in from my work bonus. And I was like, well, I could spend this on frivolous items. I could spend this on, maybe having a higher return in the stock market. But there's no better investment than investing in yourself. And I really, truly do believe in that. And I think this program has been worth every single penny. If I had to pay it again to get the results that I had, I would do it. Um, but I've been very, very happy. And I think the most important thing I would say is like, just because you're paying doesn't mean you get the results. You still have to put in the work. And I think when I first started and I had these exercises, I wanted to just be like, these are kind of like iffy. I don't know how much tangible science there is, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to be consistent for 30 days. And then I saw that it actually made a difference. And I consistently did them. And every time I kind of like fell away from the system, like clockwork, I would revert back to my old habits. And I was like, oh, it's because I'm not putting in the reps. And as soon as I start putting in the reps again, I start to feel better. My life starts to go a lot smoother and have a lot more clarity, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think the switch, going back to your original question, was when I was 25. I got some coaching and it really helped. And then I was like, I'm not getting any younger, man. I got to do this now.
No, so much to what you said I could personally relate to, the ego part, figuring things out on your own, relying solely on reason, it can only take us in terms of recovery so far. It's like, reason will say that the parachute is supposed to work, but faith is the thing that ultimately propels us to jump.
Right.
So there is that leap of faith involved where, okay, I don't know if this is going to work in my favor, but you know what? I want to fly. So in order to do that, I got to jump, and I'm so glad that you're starting to, reap some benefits, man, like you were saying. So let's dive into that. So I'm curious as
Sure.
to some of the tools that you've learned so far in the implementation program.
Yeah. So I think the big, sorry, excuse me. The biggest thing was like the morning routine. And I've been very consistent with that, which is just like really dissecting how you feel as soon as you wake up. And at first, I didn't realize I was waking up with this like, I want to call it like Phil Knight, the coach that used to like scream and shout at the sidelines and just like throw chairs around. And I had this little Phil Knight inside of me. I think it came from childhood, but also just like a lot of external pressure that I put on myself. And he was very unproductive because it made life rather miserable. And every morning I'd wake up, I'd sit down and be like, wow, I feel anxiety. I feel anger. I felt a lot of anger. And I didn't realize how angry I was until I was able to see consistently that it showed up over and over again. And what was super interesting was that as you do this feelings exercise and this morning routine over and over again, you go deeper and deeper and you start peeling the layers off of recovery, right? So at first it was like slips and relapses. I feel all this guilt and shame. Okay, let's take away the relapse and slips. Oh, now I feel this anger, this simmering anger that's always there. Okay, if I uncover that anger, it's actually, feelings of low self-worth, maybe inadequacy, maybe like fear of failure. And this anger just masks that, right? And I think it makes sense looking back at it that I had all these feelings that are all connected. But I think when I first started, I was like, I'm not angry. I'm a really like chill, peaceful person. So that has been super, super useful in terms of understanding where I am. And I think when I do face situations where life is very overwhelming, which, it happens, life is never perfect. I can kind of holistically look at the things that are affecting my life that I'm going through, seeing the feeling that I'm feeling, and then seeing if that feeling is appropriate. So, for example, if I'm underslept, if I'm overworked, if I'm not having any time to myself, I'll start to feel very angry. And I'm like, huh, okay, so now I feel angry. Is this appropriate? Probably not. But what's causing it? Are the things that are in my life that are attributing to this anger relevant? And then I can start to dissect those items individually and try to address them, right? Okay, maybe we should turn down the pressure a little bit at work. Maybe I should sleep a little bit more. And I can slowly find my basis again before it goes from anger to guilt and shame to relapse to slip and cascading all the dominoes that fall. And then you're, completely in this hole.
Yeah, yeah. It's self-awareness 101. That's really what that feelings exercise and the morning routine is all about. There's this popular example. A lot of coaches talk about this. It's like the desk example. It's like the head of the desk is like, okay, anger. That's like the core
Mhm.
belief or the feeling. And oftentimes, in order to like get rid of like the desk, we try to like pound on the top of it. Anger, go away, go away. Whereas if you address the legs, aka the things that are like supporting that belief, that are making that thing rise, like leg, over undersleeping, stress at work, stress in relation, whatever it is, and you address the legs, take them out, boom, the desk falls. So that's really, really a long-term sort of tool, like the feelings exercise. It's great in the moment to document what you're feeling, where you're at as soon as you wake up, but over time you start to pick up on patterns, right? I'm
Nice.
feeling anxious a lot, you know, recently. What's going on? Oh, I'm feeling happy a lot recently. Great. What's going on? How can I keep this momentum going? So I'm really glad that you're picking up on that self-awareness, because it's kind of like walking around in a dark room for so long and you're finally turning the lights on. The more aware you are of your internal surroundings, the more aware you are of what's going on internally, you'll be able to have more an effect of what goes on externally, right? But
Right.
that's awesome. And the group, I mean, in my own reboot, bro, it's really helped out with that. It's actually kind of a nice segue. I am curious about your overall experience in the Facebook community, the private group.
I'm very happy with the Facebook community. I think everyone is very supportive. I was very active for a while posting things, and I would post like revelations. I
Yeah.
think, revelations about like being together. I was posting revelations about the rubber band and even my anger and like comparing myself to others. And before I started writing these, I was like, okay, I don't know if I should be sharing this with the group. And these are just like revelations I'm having. But as I started to share them, I found that a lot of brothers would read it and be like, wow, I completely agree. Or I feel this too. Or, I've tried this thing. Have you tried this thing? It seems like you have this problem.
Yeah.
What about this resource? And I just found that incredibly encouraging, like affirmation that I'm going in the right direction. But before this community, I had very few people that I could talk to about all of these things, right? And it was always just in my own head. I didn't even really journal that much. So it kind of just like floated around in my head and they got lost and I never really materialized it. But I think this reinforcement of this feedback and affirmation was very transformative in making sure that I'm going in the right direction and being able to relate to other people who have been through the process has been very, very nice in terms of keeping me on the right track.
Sure. No, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that, man. That's awesome. And a great way to kind of further that feedback is to, interact with the coaches that we have and stuff. So I am curious, like, have you gotten the chance to hop on some of the coaching calls?
I've been to some of the calls. I do work during most of those hours, so they've been sparse, but the ones that I've been to have been very helpful. I think I went to one with JK when he was talking, and it's just amazing to meet him in person, not in person, but in video and
I was like,
seeing him.
what?
Yeah,
Where was I? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've talked to Chris a couple of times personally. We've always had good conversation. I've talked to GT. He's been very insightful. And I think I'm hoping to hop onto Coach Milan's call because my AP said that he was very, very good. So I'm not trying to leave any of those resources on the table.
Sure.
But yeah, I think they have been useful. I kind of wish I had a bit more time in my life to go to them had it not been conflicting my work hours.
No, it makes sense, man. And yeah, it's every single person that is involved with the team in one way or another has been involved with this series of compulsive behaviors in the past. It's not like
Mhm.
a random person who's just like, just follow this three-step process or what have you. We're able to kind of give you a similar insight, but with the heart of the fact that we've been there before. We've seen this movie before. We kind of have a feel of where the jump scares are going to be. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, it's a community of people who get it. Like you
Mhm.
said, it's one thing to, confide in, someone close to you who might not understand your situation but will be empathetic, but it's one thing to address it in a community of people that not only understand where you're coming from, but have legitimately been in your shoes. So it's kind of life changing. So no, I'm glad that you've gotten a lot out of the community. That's awesome, dude. And
Yeah,
as far as you mentioned your AP, like how has the aspect of accountability aided you in your reboot so far?
AP's been very good. I think I was very lucky. I got an AP that was just an absolute rock star. He's very high achieving. He's, balancing family life with his business. He's an entrepreneur. He's in very good shape. He's very musically talented. So a lot of like similar characteristics. I think when I was like looking for an AP, I was like definitely diligent about finding someone who could kind of relate to a lot of my struggles. And he's
Yep.
a little bit older, but I think there's always this quote that I hear. I think Chris, you might have said this, but you don't have to be healed to help someone. And at first, when we were having this relationship, I think he was getting familiar with the AP process, where I had like an AP before from the free group. So I was a little more vulnerable and open. So I could help him there in terms of opening up, which was very, very helpful. But I think him being a couple of years ahead of me in my life in terms of like timeline, in terms of like life milestone, he gave me a lot of perspective too, right? Like maybe that like the grass is not always green on the other side. Maybe like we have to slow down a little bit sometimes as opposed to rush into things. So it's been very, very fruitful. I think both of us have been able to give really good perspectives. And I think it took a little bit of time for fine tuning to see what works best for us because he's very busy. I'm very busy, want to respect each other's time, but also be very committed to this. But we've been awesome. At the beginning, whenever we fell, we supported each other very well. And now it's gotten to the point where we're doing micro adjustments, right? It's like, okay, we're on a good trajectory. We're both like mostly maintaining our goals and we're like staying very stable and we're like updating each other. What can we do even better, right? Like what can we do to increase our cadence, our emotional volatility, and keep moving forward in the right direction. So he's been awesome. I cannot say with enough praise how he has affected my reboot positively.
That's awesome. And I love how you emphasize that. It's like, beyond any relationship with a compulsive behavior, it's like, how's your life going? Like, how's your emotional control? How's your family life? Like, are you taking care of your body? Like, just holding your AP accountable to living the best overall life that they can. One thing that is definitely talked about a lot in the group is that it's more than just, the compulsive behavior. That might have
Correct.
been the first reason for us to, go out and seek help. But once you have a system for taking care of an urge, even if it's not perfect, once you're in a place where it's like, okay, we know what to do, then it's like, let's form a kind of lifestyle where any past compulsions just become irrelevant. Like we're so invested in this thing, then why would we do that thing? You know?
Absolutely. And on that point, I think you brought up a really good perspective, which is like it's a lot more than just stopping the compulsive behavior. There's a lot of lifestyle changes. And I think of it as like a dam, right? If you have the Hoover Dam, your boundaries are your dam. And I had really strong dams. I had the software boundaries, I had the physical boundaries. Those ones were the most helpful. Like leave your phone out of your room, boys and girls. But eventually, if the water is too high, your internal pressure, your mental health, and just like trying to brute force it yourself, the dam will break. It doesn't matter what you can do. Like software boundaries are only as strong as possible. I'm a software engineer, so unfortunately, I know all the ways around it. And physical boundaries are there to buy you time. what I didn't think about, or what I didn't give enough attention to back in the day when I was trying to do this myself, was like, how can I lower the water? How can I stop all of it from gushing in? Because every 2 weeks or so, I would have the dam break, right? The cracks would form. I could see them and I couldn't stop them. And then all of a sudden the dam would break and I'd have to rebuild the dam. And every time you rebuild the dam, it's not as strong, right? And I think that's an important aspect to think about as well. But now, I'm trying to like keep the pressure of the water very, very low. But also, because I have all this time and energy now, I can really fortify this dam as much as possible so that, higher waves don't really take me over anymore. Although I'm like trying to manage them and making sure the water pressure is at a good level.
No, absolutely. I love that dam analogy. It's really, really, one might say damn. But here's what it was easy. It was right there. So, but I am very curious because, kind of on the same wavelength of like, hey, it's more than just a compulsive behavior. I am curious as to kind of where you're at now as far as the way you might fortify your dam now compared to the way you would try to do it, before joining the group. Like, what does that sort of process look like, specifically for you now?
That's such a good question. I've gotten so far, right? Like before it was like, oh, I have to add this extra website to my software blocker, right? That was like such a low level of fruit to bear or to pull from. Now it's like, okay, I actually don't feel very good when I have too many carbs, right? It's like my mental space is not great with my diet being poor. Or it's like, I'm a little too stimulated before going to bed when I'm trying to work. Maybe I have to keep work outside of the bedroom before I wind down, right? Because that can cause like a racing mind and that leads to like being unable to sleep. It's even gotten to the point of like, okay, I realized that certain supplements that I take actually increase my testosterone, and I need to be very careful with when and how I take them because that
Yeah.
could contribute negatively or positively to my urges, right? So these nuances, I would have never had the ability to see had I not cleared the first couple of layers of reasons why I was slipping or like why I was not working. Like, I think progress is exponential and you could only reach some of these things that I'm kind of facing now if you really take the basics and run with it, right? Cleaning up your house, making sure your devices are locked up. Like that is a bare minimum. And then exercise and diet, and then all of these small things at the top. And I'm excited because I'm sure there's more at the top that I haven't even reached yet.
Mm, I love that, man, and I'm really happy for you. So that actually kind of works as another segue into a question that I love to ask, and I'd love to get your insight. Having learned what you've learned so far and having experienced what you have so far as growth and as far as learning, awareness, everything involved in that, imagine for a moment, you meet somebody who is just struggling in silence in the way that you and I know about very well. Maybe not particularly sure who to talk to, what to do, just going through it in terms of their behavior goes. And again, having experienced what you have so far, I'm curious as to, what you would want to share with a brother like that.
I think every time I've tried to help someone, what has been most successful is being vulnerable and being honest. There's like, sorry about that. There's a huge barrier between men helping other men because we are afraid to seem weak. We are afraid to share our truths, and we are afraid for people to use those truths to hurt us. Um, and like, honestly, if you share something with someone that's very vulnerable and they use it to hurt you, yo, screw that guy, right? That guy's not worth your time, anyways. But going back to helping someone, I found that if you just try to tell someone something, if you just try to like implement the system, it's not going to work. But if you go to them and you lead them, you show them the process that you went to, you show them how much struggle you went through, you show them how much better you got. If they have that intrinsic drive in them to want to get better, they will ask questions and they will try to put their life together, and you can then mentor them, right? There's a really good quote which is like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And I think a lot of times in my life before, I've tried to force people to drink. And that only gets so far because it's not internal. And I think if it's not internal that they really want to get better for themselves, they're just not going to get better. And I think even for myself, right? Like for the last couple of years, I didn't want this recovery bad enough where I could have my own momentum and get to terminal velocity. I was always just like, I kind of want it. I'm going to try, I'm going to do these things, but wasn't spending, 20, 30 minutes every morning, dedicated to it and like
Right.
checking consistently with the system.
No, that makes sense. So I guess with all that said, sort of like a follow-up
Mhm.
question to this person, would you recommend this program?
I would absolutely recommend this program. I think this program has all the structure that you need. It's it's not only a shortcut. I think it might be just like the secret ingredient that a lot of people are missing in their recovery. And
Sure.
I do want to caveat that fact that just because you have the secret ingredient doesn't mean your dish tastes good. You can still burn all your food, right? So you do have to put in the work and make sure you're following the instructions. But I guess I would say to people who are a little apprehensive with this program, it's like, what do you have to lose? A little bit of money, maybe a little bit of time. But if you give it your all and you try and you see some positive benefit, dude, like that's already a huge, huge win. And keep at it and keep making more and more small wins. And eventually you'll get there as long as you're very persistent. I think that's the very, very important thing as well. You got to be very, very persistent and really want this. But this will definitely help you along the way. I think all the effort in the world guided in the wrong direction will not bring you to victory.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, you can. I love that last quote. You can have all the right sort of energy and momentum, but if you're going in the wrong direction, it'll only take you so far in the wrong direction. Dude, thank you so much for hopping on, for your time, for your insights, man. I love that. So much to dive into. But before we, let you go, yeah, for anybody who might be listening to this, for anybody who might kind of be on the fence or maybe have kind of caught themselves in the act of maybe walking in the wrong direction, which is why they might be listening right now. Is there anything you might want to say, some final words to somebody who might be still on the fence, like I said, or someone who might be still unsure of what to do and where to go?
I just want to say, like, you're not broken. I think for a long time in my life, I thought I was broken. And I was like, wow, I am just completely messed up. There's a lot of forces in society that make us think that we're broken and, really try to internalize it. Like, you need this, you're wrong. We will help you solve your problem. But really, like, you're not broken. You're probably just doing a couple of things that are wrong. And there are overwhelming forces to make you feel that way, and you can seek the truth if you want to, and you can find out that you are valuable, you are, a good person, and you deserve great success. I want to leave you off with this one quote which I have written on my whiteboard, which JK has written once, which is like, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, it is that we are powerful beyond measure. Who am I to be successful, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Because you're a child of God, and playing small does not serve the world. And I think about that every single morning, about how, I deserve good success because I put in the work. And I think everyone else does too.
And with that, gentlemen, thank you so much, Wenson, for your time. Again, your mind, your experience. It is a tool that I believe is going to help build somebody up. Thank you so much, man. All the best to you.